What's going on, guys? I'm Tommy, and I'm coming at ya with another review. Today, I'm going to be reviewing Hasbro The Black Series First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter. This absolute behemoth was gifted to me as a Christmas gift from my good friend and good friend of the channel, Hybrid Toy Reviews. Hybrid, thank you so much for getting this for me for Christmas. This is something that I've been wanting for my Black Series collection for a really long time now. The biggest item ever made in the Black Series line at the time of recording this review. I'm so excited to have this in hand to review. If you guys are familiar with my reviews, you'll be probably able to notice by now, I wasn't able to fit this in my usual background that I have set up for my action figure reviews, which makes it kind of even crazier that I'm even doing this review. So you can see kind of the figures that I have hung up on the wall in the background here. Let's get right into the packaging on this so that we can get it open. So this beast came out in 2015 in conjunction with the release of Episode 7, The Force Awakens. This is the old style of Black Series packaging with that kind of black and gray color scheme with a lot of red mixed in there as well. Obviously, this is the only time they've ever done a release this big, so there's no packaging to compare it to as far as standards go, but it does fit the theme of what the typical Black Series packaging was at the time. Up at the top left, you have a massive Star Wars The Black Series logo, and in the top right, you have an awesome black and white illustration of this awesome vehicle. On the left side here, you do have a kind of render of what the figure looks like scaled next to the vehicle, fully assembled. You have some close-up shots down towards the center here of the pilot in the cockpit, as well as that there is a second seat for that rear gunner there. You can see the figure in the plastic window towards the bottom right corner, the name of the vehicle in a couple different languages on the bottom left, and then some of your warnings and logos down at the bottom right. Here on this side, you have your portrait of the First Order TIE Pilot, the Special Forces one, designated by those red stripes on the helmet there. And then on this side, I'm trying to figure out the best way to show this here. You have the number 01 for the giant vehicle there, as well as the name. This kind of mocks how they would do the numbering for the mainline figures in the red box line. And on the back of the box here, you have a ton of images showing you all the different features of this vehicle here. You've got the Star Wars The Black Series logo, as well as the number 01 on the top left again. And then on that right side and down at the bottom left, just tons and tons of images showing you the interior, the different details that the ship has. It is very cool. And then we do have a bio in about 1,000 different languages, which states, "The elite of the First Order starfighter pilots have access to specialized craft, such as two-seater TIE craft outfitted with enhanced weapons and sensor systems." And there is a bio in about 1,000 different languages for the First Order TIE fighter pilot elite, which states, "The skilled pilots of the First Order launch into combat aboard advanced fighter craft, hunting down enemy vessels and protecting space around installations and warships." Down at the bottom, we have more of your classic Black Series legalese. Please, guys, don't consider feeding this TIE fighter to your babies. On the top of the box here, you have your Black Series logo again, as well as some of those images that we already saw on the other sides of the packaging. And on the bottom of the box, just your barcode and some of your legalese there. As someone who usually is reviewing a 6-inch action figure or a hot toy as the biggest thing that I review, this thing is a hulking beast that I'm really having to kind of figure out what the best way to go about this is. What we're going to do next is we're going to open this thing up and we're going to assemble this ship. Alright everyone, here's the contents out of the box. Before we assemble this thing, I think the best way to show you some of the details that are on the cockpit area are to just show it to you now. This thing is a beast. So here's the cockpit area of the TIE Fighter here. You'll see it's got that nice red paint application, which actually has some really nice weathering here. A little bit of airbrushing has been applied to give it just a little bit of that more weathered look for that black there, and you'll see that it really makes it stand out. It still pops, it's very vibrant, but it looks a lot more realistic in that way. The rest of it is really just black plastic. There's not much as far as painted detail goes. Again, you'll see little hits of that airbrushing and lighter colors there to kind of help that detail come out. There are little painted red applications here at the fronts of the lasers at the front in order to show that it can fire. This thing has some really nice detail here. You'll see the sides. This is where you'll plug in those wings. I believe there is an instruction manual to help you with that. On the back here, you'll see the thrusters right here, and you have that nice viewport there for that rear seat with that rear cannon, which is not attached to the bottom right now. That comes separately with the cockpit, the top hatch here, in a little baggie. Taking a look at the inside of the cockpit area here, you'll see lots of paint applications of whites, reds, yellows, printed pieces for some of the control panels, and a very spacious interior. You can see there's 2 seats in there with, honestly, you could fit more than 2 figures in there with how much space you have. Looking at the rear, you do also get a lot of space with control panels and things of that nature. Trying to get the light to hit this as best as possible. Like I said, I really don't review things that are of this size, so I wasn't well equipped for a review of this scale. But again, the detail on the inside of the ship is extremely good, and I'm very impressed with just how much sculpted and painted detail actually made it into the interior of this TIE fighter. So we have opened up the little bag with the additional pieces. One of the pieces you get here is the blaster cannon that's going to go underneath. This is the blaster cannon that's operated by the person in the rear seat of the vehicle. Some red paint applications for the fronts of the lasers here, but other than that, just some really nice sculpted detail. And then of course you have this piece here. These are the antennas, although they do tend to look like blaster cannons of their own. These are the little antennas that stick up off the side here. You'll actually see down here, this is the little hole here that you put those in. Very nice that you include those separately so they don't break in the box. And then of course we have the canopy for the cockpit. You'll see it is done with that nice same dark plastic that the rest of the ship is done in, and you also get that nice tinted clear plastic for the viewports at the top there. Very nice. On the inside, just as much nice sculpted detail there. This thing looks great. Can't wait to attach it and get the ship put together. So they do give you a little instruction manual here so that you kind of know how to put this thing together. I do appreciate that they do things like that. You have all your contents here so we know we're not missing anything out of the box. And then on the inside here, they show you how to put this thing together. So it looks like it's showing you the cockpit area of the ship from the back on how you apply those. So I'm going to spin the ship around and we'll put those on. So the canopy is going to attach by just attaching this here. It slides in very nicely. I did not have to work that at all. And then you just click that into place, and now your canopy is attached. There's a little pull tab on the front so you can lift it up. It might just fall out, it looks like. However, that's honestly a good thing because I don't want this to be too tight, as I would risk this little hinge breaking in the back here. But it does fold itself shut very nicely, and once it's closed, it stays shut. So if for some reason you decided to fly your TIE fighter upside down, that's not going anywhere. And then of course we're going to attach our little antennas here. Best way to go about this is have the smaller antenna facing the outside of the ship, and again, just make sure the back of the ship is facing you, and this should just click into place without an issue. And yep, it did click into place, no problem at all. And it can also swivel, which is interesting. But yeah, I have no issues keeping that in place. And again, honestly, probably a good thing that it's loose. Probably would help it if it fell, keep it from breaking. All right, so attaching the wings of the Starfighter, which are absolutely huge, to the actual cockpit area of the ship. These are very nicely detailed. I love how the paneling is sculpted here, and I love how all of the machinery is painted. They've also done some airbrushing to the ship. I actually thought it had dust on it at first, and then I went to wipe it away and realized there was just some very light gray airbrushing just to give a little bit more depth to that detail there. And you'll see on the inside here, this is where you're going to connect the wings to the ship. Now, both these wings are identical. It looks like there's no right or wrong way to put these on. It looks like the top and bottoms of the wings are identical as well, which is always good. The less I have to worry about putting the wrong wing on or putting them on upside down, the better. So I'm sure this is just as simple as pushing the ship into place. Once that locks in, you'll feel that snap. It feels very secure. We're gonna get the other wing attached now. And now just attaching the other wing. Now that that's snapped into place, your TIE fighter is almost complete. Now all you're gonna do is take the little piece here for the bottom turret, and I like to have this facing the back of the ship just because this is the rear gunner's weapon anyway. Once you snap that in, it's nice and secure, and it does have a 360-degree swivel as it should. And just like that, ladies and gentlemen, here is your Black Series First Order TIE fighter. This thing is absolutely massive. Like, the box itself is huge, but seeing this thing in the flesh is even bigger. I mean, I could barely get this thing to fit on screen. It's actually really stable. Obviously, it's going to wobble back and forth, but it's good that it has that kind of give a little bit so that, you know, if you're playing with it or if you're moving it around, it's not susceptible to cracking and breaking at those joints that are connected together at the base of the wings. Keep in mind as well that the First Order TIE Fighter, being a two-seater vehicle, is actually bigger than a regular TIE Fighter. For reference here, using a much smaller scale, I have the Jazzwares Micro Galaxy Squadron, which is a 1-inch figure scale First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter next to a regular First Order TIE Fighter, and you can even see at this scale, this ship is bigger, the canopy area is bigger, the cockpit area is bigger because you're sitting two people in there. So this ship is actually a little bit bigger than what a regular Black Series scale TIE Fighter would be. This thing's massive, and I'm actually really happy to have this in the collection. Now, you do have your figure in the tray. Don't think I forgot about him, so let's get this guy open. We'll check him out next. Alright, we're moving a little bit back to form now with this point of the review. So we have the one accessory that our TIE Pilot's going to come with is the SE-44C blaster pistol. This blaster pistol is going to come in a black sculpt with just a little bit of silver paint application on the body of the blaster. We've seen this blaster several times in the Black Series line. Mine is a little bit warped out of the packaging, but it's been in the box for about 10 years now, so I'm not going to be upset with warped things in the packaging that are 10 years old. Great accessory and a great sidearm for this pilot. Then, of course, we have our First Order TIE Pilot Elite. This guy has a couple different names. He's also known as the First Order Special Forces TIE Pilot. The only difference between this guy and the regular First Order TIE Pilot is that this guy has these two red markings on the front of the helmet here. That is the only difference between them. Sculpt-wise and armor-wise, they are exactly the same. This guy is done pretty much in all black sculpt, as most Imperial and First Order TIE Pilots are. He has, again, those two red stripes that make him Special Forces. He's got some silver down here at the chin filters, and then down here on the kind of control box, you'll see some white, some red, some blue, and some gray for those paint applications at those control boxes. Looks nice. On the shoulder armor here, you're going to have a printed First Order cog here. This isn't the hexagonal one that we usually see. This one is circular, which is interesting. And aside from that, you know, he's got a couple pouches that are sculpted in on the belt here. Nothing really to write home to. That technically this is a unique trooper design, and as a collector of the First Order troopers, this is one that I definitely wanted to add to the collection. And how could you get this figure and not also get the ship that he pilots? Covering articulation, this guy did come out in 2015, so you can expect some dated articulation in that way. He has a ball and hinge at the neck here, so he can look down a little bit, he can look up a little bit as well. This hose from the chin to the control box is very nice. It moves very nicely with the figure. I don't feel like it's going to stress and break as I'm posing the figure around, which is great. He does have a slight bit of tilt there at the head, as well as some right and some left. At the shoulders here, he has another hinge and swivel, so his arms at the shoulders can get to almost 90 degrees at the hinge, and they do have a 360 degree swivel. He's got some deep cut single jointed elbows here, which are going to get you to about 90 degrees bend, which is good, and there is a swivel there as well. At the wrists, he does also have a hinge and swivel, so you have that swivel there with a horizontal hinge at the right wrist and another horizontal hinge at the left wrist. At the midsection, just beneath the chest armor here, he does have another ball joint, which is going to get you some decent range, especially for 2015. He's got a ball joint at the hips here, which is also going to have some decent range. There are these little pieces, they're kind of like a stretchy plastic that kind of run these cords down to the about middle of the leg here from the waist. Just be wary of those. I'm sure that over time these will become brittle. Mine does not seem to be that way. There is also a cut for a thigh swivel about midway down the thigh. Again, just be wary. You know, if you're moving the figure around, you don't want to break this strapping by over articulating the figure. And then of course he does have the ugly pinned double jointed knees that were quite commonplace in 2015. These have some really nice range to them. However, I just think they look a little bit not aesthetically pleasing from the front view. And then of course down at the ankles here, he has the Black Series Classic forward facing pin for rocker, as well as that hinge, which gets you some really nice forward and some really nice back. Overall, for 2015, this was actually pretty good articulation for the Black Series line. So now what we have left to do is really just get this guy in the cockpit of the ship so that we can see him through the viewport. And of course, one more thing to note, this blaster pistol does not have the clip that attaches to the leg, and it also does not have any weapon storage on him. However, here's how it holds in the hand. The trigger finger fits nicely into the trigger guard, and when you shake the figure around, he passes the shake test no problem at all. And of course, would it be one of my reviews if the figure was not hitting a one-legged running pose, and in this case, I was able to balance this figure running on top of the TIE Fighter. Once you push the canopy back far enough, it will get more tense and friction will kind of do its job in keeping it open so it doesn't flop down. Best way to get this guy seated here is going to be to bring those hip joints up into that sitting position. Use both joints of those double jointed knees to bring the feet to a kind of almost 90-degree bend, as close as you can get to that. Make sure to raise the arms up. It's just going to make everything very easy when you're sitting the figure down in the vehicle, as it can be pretty difficult getting him in there. All right, getting him seated in was very difficult. I definitely, again, recommend having the legs posed up in that already sitting position. However, you can thankfully pull the back of the seat up, which is very nice. I like that feature a lot for this vehicle, because there is like a vice grip that goes around his waist so that when he's in there, he's not flopping all over the place, but getting him in there is very difficult. I recommend, again, putting him in the seated position before you get him into the vehicle, and then once he's in there, kind of shimmy his waist into the clip, and once he's in there, he'll be very secure. Giving us a little top light from my phone here, you'll be able to see him in the canopy. It's really cool to actually see this figure in there, even with the tinted clear plastic. You can see him inside the vehicle. He looks awesome in there. And with that, guys, that's going to do it for my review of the Black Series First Order Special Forces TIE Fighter. This thing is an absolute beast. I'm really happy to add this to the collection. I have no idea where I'm going to put it, and I honestly think that's the reason for a lot of collectors why they didn't end up picking this up back in 2015. It is just such a massive vehicle, and I don't think that there's a real good way to find a good display for it. I think if this was Imperial, a lot more collectors would have picked this up and, you know, dealt with it. But, you know, we do what we do as collectors, and this is a really cool piece that I will definitely make space for in my collection. Massive, massive thank you to Hybrid Toy Reviews for gifting this to me as a Christmas gift. You are amazing, dude. Thanks for being who you are and being an awesome friend, and this is awesome. I'm so happy I got to review this for the channel. And with that, guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. If you did and you're not yet subscribed, subscribe to Blitz Transmissions. I've got awesome Star Wars content coming out all the time. Make sure to check out my social media, all of which is linked in the description below. If you would like to see some of my action figure reviews early, make sure to check out my Rancor Battalion channel membership, which is also in the description. Guys, I hope you enjoyed this review. I'll catch you for the next one, and may the Force be with you.